Hello, everyone. There's an ongoing debate concerning the discrepancies and differences between legal basement apartments, secondary suites, and finished basements. So I hope that this video addresses some of those concerns. Now, to begin with, a legal apartment is a separately contained unit, and the building requirements for these types of units are very onerous for the most part. They require special fire-rated drywall, specific type of doors, fire dampers, and generally speaking, the requirement is that if there is a fire in one of these units, that it takes at least 20 to 30 minutes for that fire to spread to other parts of the property. In addition to that, you also require 2 unobstructed exits to the outdoors. Now, a secondary suite, on the other hand, isn't built to the same standard. Now, the standard is pretty high, but it's not the same standard of an apartment. So, for example, you don't need the special fire-rated materials. However, the unit has to be self-contained. It has to have a separate bathroom, kitchen, living space, and there has to be certain minimum clearances insofar as the ceiling is concerned. These also have to have 2 unobstructed escapes, one of which must lead directly to the outside. So that's where, for example, the separate entrances come into place. Now, unlike legal apartments, the burn rate on a secondary suite is 15 minutes for the most part. Now, the last thing we have here is a finished basement. When it comes to a finished basement, this is what most properties have today. So the construction is generally not completed in accordance with a building permit, and generally you don't have people who are professionals, I would say, that come in and finish these kinds of things. You have handymen that have an idea of how to construct things, but they're not built to the standard that would be required ordinarily. Now, what we're finding as far as issues are concerned through our office is that, for example, a listing agent on the actual MLS sheet have indicated that there is a finished basement apartment with separate entrance. Now, when you say it's a finished basement apartment, you are saying, pursuant to the bylaws of TREB, that it is a legal basement apartment and can be used for that purpose. Now, you have to be mindful as a listing sales representative that unless it's legal, you should not be representing it as such on the actual listing. Otherwise, this may constitute as a misrepresentation, and it could end up coming back on you if, for example, the buyer rents out the unit and it turns out that now the construction is so bad that the city comes in and tells you to tear it down. That can obviously cause a lot of problems. On the other hand, we're seeing issues related to when, for example, a buyer is trying to be so diligent in doing their due diligence that they go as far as checking with the city to ensure that the use is actually legal. Now, the problem with this is, for the most part, is that you're tipping off the local city departments that there is a separately contained unit, which will generally probe an inspection. So majority of lawyers, for example, on the closing end of things, will not go to the city and confirm that that unit is legal unless it's specifically represented and warranted by the actual sellers that it is a separately contained unit or a finished basement apartment that is legal. If we have those instructions from a buyer, we will go ahead and seek the clearance from the city, but otherwise we don't go out and do these sorts of due diligences, and we have the client sign off on a document whereby they acknowledge that it is a single family residential property only. Now, how do you ensure that everyone's on the same page and to limit liability really when it comes to a transaction from a legal perspective? So first off, if the suite is an apartment or it's legal and is designated as such, obtain the requisite paperwork, confirm with the city, and further to that, add in representations and warranties into the actual agreement of purchase and sale, and ensure that those representations and warranties survive and don't merge the actual closing. If, for example, the suite is not up to snuff, then at least bring in the right kind of professional to ensure that it meets the basic standards set for electrical and fire safety at the very least, and have acknowledgments put into the actual schedules of the agreement of purchase and sale, whereby the buyer acknowledges that the building may not be built in accordance with the requisite legislation, the codes, and may not have building permits in place for the same. In addition to that, you should be cognizant of a couple of different things. So first off, anybody in their capacity can request an inspection of a secondary suite or an apartment from the city planning department or the fire department. So that means if, for example, you've pissed off a tenant or whatever the case may be, they may go and actually lodge a complaint and have this whole process started. Now, the issue with getting caught within the legal apartment or a suite is that you may have to ultimately rip it out, and there's a lot of costs that are associated with it. If it's built so badly, you will be required to cease and desist that operation of that unit. So you do really want to ensure that you're covered in that regard. So to sum it up, put in the work and find out whether the actual unit is legal or not, or whether the apartment's legal or not, and ensure that everything's in writing so that you can protect your interests. And again, to reiterate, if you're a listing agent and you're putting together an MLS document, do not represent that it is a finished basement apartment unless it's an actual legal apartment. You should be using the option that says finished with separate entrance, and then you would indicate that there's the 1+1 kitchen, which would indicate to a prospective purchaser that there is a finished unit in the basement, but that it is not a legal basement apartment. I hope this video helps, and we'll see you next time.